One of these films was smuggled into Cannes under a fake title because the studio was embarrassed by it. Another was labeled too weird for American audiences by its own distributor and dumped into 4 theaters. And one was directed by a future auteur icon who disowned it for 30 years. All of them are from the 1970s. All of them are masterpieces you've probably never seen. The 70s are remembered for Jaws, The Godfather, Taxi Driver, the classics that rewrote cinema. But buried beneath them is a parallel film history. Movies that were too strange, too quiet, too early, or released on the wrong weekend. Films that critics dismissed, audiences ignored, and studios pretended didn't exist. Until decades later when obsessive cinephiles dug them up and realized what we all missed. By the end of this, you'll know 10 films that deserve to reshape their genres. You'll understand why timing and marketing matter more than quality. And you'll have a watch list that'll make you feel like you discovered something secret. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. Robert Mitchum plays a low-level Boston gunrunner facing prison time unless he rats on his crew. That's it. No car chases, no shootouts in the first hour. Just a tired, middle-aged man drinking coffee in diners, making phone calls, trying to survive one more week without getting killed or locked up. It's the opposite of every crime thriller being made in 1973. Paramount had no idea what to do with it. They marketed it like a gritty action film, slapped together a trailer that promised explosions and betrayals, then dumped it into a handful of theaters with zero promotion. Audiences showed up expecting The French Connection and got a slow-burn character study about economic desperation. It vanished in 2 weeks. Here's why it slaps. Peter Yates directs this like he's making a documentary about failure. Every location is flat winter sunlight and cracked pavement. Every actor talks like a real person, not a screenplay. Mitchum's performance is so understated you don't realize he's breaking your heart until the final 10 minutes. There's a scene where Eddie sits in a bar explaining how his hands ache from arthritis and he can't do manual labor anymore, so crime is all he has left. It's devastating. No score, no dramatics, just Mitchum's face. The best hook scene? Eddie meets his contact in a hockey rink. They watch a Bruins game while negotiating a gun deal. The entire conversation is drowned out by crowd noise and skate sounds. You have to read their body language to understand the transaction. It's Mamet before Mamet existed. Who will love it? If you obsess over Michael Mann's Thief or the Safdie brothers. Heaven knows what, this is your patient zero. If you prefer crime movies about consequences instead of capers, this is your Bible. And this was just the warm-up. Because the next film was so misunderstood on release, the director refused to discuss it for decades. Sorcerer, 1977. William Friedkin follows up The Exorcist, the biggest horror film of all time, with a remake of a 1953 French thriller about 4 desperate criminals driving trucks full of nitroglycerin through a South American jungle. No stars, no supernatural elements. Just 2 hours of men sweating through their shirts while transporting explosives that could detonate if they hit one pothole. Paramount and Universal co-financed it, expecting Friedkin to deliver another pop culture phenomenon. He delivered an existential nightmare about capitalism, desperation, and the illusion of control. The marketing tried to sell it as a supernatural thriller because of the title. Audiences thought they were getting Exorcist too. Opening weekend was a massacre. It cost $22 million and earned less than $6 million domestically. Friedkin called it the death of his A-list career. Why it slaps. Every frame looks like a fever dream shot on location in actual hell. Friedkin filmed in the Dominican Republic during monsoon season. The bridge crossing sequence, where the trucks inch across a rotting rope bridge in a rainstorm, took 3 months to shoot and feels like watching a slow-motion heart attack. No CGI, no rear projection, just practical insanity. Tangerine Dream's synth score sounds like machinery digesting itself. The whole film feels like being trapped inside someone else's panic attack. The hook scene? The rope bridge, 30 minutes of screen time, one truck, a storm, wood cracking, ropes snapping, water rising. It's pure, mounting dread with no release. Spielberg watched this scene and allegedly told Friedkin it was the most intense thing he'd ever seen. Who will love it? Fans of Wages of Fear, obviously, but also anyone obsessed with Herzog's Fitzcarraldo or Apocalypse Now. People who love movies that feel like they might kill their cast. Same decade, very different disaster of recognition. Three Women, 1977. Robert Altman dreams the entire plot of this film. Literally, he wakes up one morning, writes down a dream about two women whose identities blur and merge, and decides to make it with no traditional screenplay. Sissy Spacek and Shelley Duvall play roommates in a California desert town working at a spa for the elderly. Their personalities start switching. Desert imagery, ambient unease, a mural of reptilian creatures. It plays like Persona, directed by David Lynch, before Lynch made Eraserhead. 20th Century Fox released it to 4 theaters. 4. Critics called it interesting but impenetrable. It won Shelley Duvall Best Actress at Cannes, but died financially in the U.S. Altman's experimental phase had burned audiences out after Nashville. They wanted story. He gave them vibes and symbolism. Why it slaps. This is American surrealism before American cinema admitted surrealism was a valid mode. Duvall's performance is so painfully awkward and vulnerable you feel embarrassed watching her exist. Spacek morphs from shy admirer to dominant presence without a single moment of explanation. The editing rhythms are off. Scenes linger too long or cut too fast. It feels like watching memory instead of narrative. The hook scene? Spacek stands in a swimming pool at night, fully clothed, staring at Duvall through a window. The camera holds on her face for nearly a minute. No dialogue, no score, just the hum of pool filtration and the Texas wind. You have no idea what it means, but you can't look away. Who will love it? Mulholland Drive fans. People who think films should make you feel something indefinable rather than explain everything. Anyone who watches Phantom Thread and thinks this needed to be weirder. And we're just getting started. The Conversation, 1974. Francis Ford Coppola makes a paranoid thriller about surveillance, guilt, and the moral collapse of privacy. Gene Hackman plays a San Francisco audio surveillance expert who records a conversation that might predict a murder. The entire plot hinges on ambiguity. Is the couple he's spying on in danger or planning the danger? The more he listens, the less he understands. Paramount released it between Godfather 1 and 2. Coppola won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It made $12 million domestic on a reported budget of $1.6. That should be a win. But in the shadow of The Godfather, it was treated like a minor detour. Critics praised it. Audiences stayed home. It took Watergate happening months later for people to realize Coppola had predicted the paranoia before the scandal broke. Why it slaps. This is the blueprint for every tech thriller about surveillance for the next 50 years. Hackman's performance is all repression and micro-expressions. He barely speaks above a whisper. The sound design, layered recordings, ambient city noise, distorted playback, becomes a character. Walter Murch manipulates audio the way Hitchcock manipulated image. There's a scene where Hackman sits alone in his apartment, listening to the recording on loop, adjusting frequencies, isolating syllables, and the meaning of a sentence completely inverts based on emphasis. It's a masterclass in how context creates truth. The hook scene? Hackman rips apart his entire apartment, looking for a bug he's convinced someone planted. He tears up floorboards, dismantles furniture, shreds wallpaper. The paranoia he inflicted on others has infected him. The final shot is him sitting in the rubble playing saxophone. Destroyed by his own skill set. Who will love it? If you obsess over Zodiac, All the President's Men, or Blowout, this is required viewing. If you think the best thrillers are about process and moral decay, not explosions, this is your film. But nothing compared to what happened next. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. Sam Peckinpah makes a revenge film about a Mexican bartender hunting a dead man's head for a bounty. Warren Oates drives through the desert with a rotting head in a bag, talking to it, drinking tequila, losing his mind. It's grotesque, funny, tragic, and so soaked in existential despair, it makes the Wild Bunch look optimistic. United Artists opened it in August with minimal marketing. Critics eviscerated it. Variety called it nauseating. Audiences rejected it outright. It became Peckinpah's biggest commercial humiliation. He defended it until his death, calling it his most personal film. Decades later, filmmakers like Tarantino, the Coens, and Guillermo del Toro started naming it as a masterpiece. Too late for Peckinpah's career. Why it slaps. This is Peckinpah distilled to pure bitterness and beauty. Oates gives a performance of total commitment to a character the world sees as pathetic. The violence isn't stylized. It's ugly, messy, sad. The love story at the center is doomed from frame one, and you watch it decay in real time. The final shootout feels less like action and more like assisted suicide. It's a film about men who've been discarded by history, trying to claw back dignity through violence, and realizing dignity was never the prize. The hook scene? Oates sits in a convertible in the desert, the severed head in a bag beside him, drinking and having a full conversation with it like it's his therapist. He's confessing his failures, justifying his choices, begging for validation from a corpse. It's absurd and heartbreaking in equal measure. Who will love it? Fans of No Country for Old Men, El Topo, and anything by Refn. People who like their westerns drenched in nihilism and tequila. Same year. Completely different invisibility. Cockfighter, 1974. Warren Oates again. This time he plays a cockfighting trainer who's taken a vow of silence until he wins a championship. The entire film follows him through the rural South, attending illegal cockfights, training birds, getting into bar brawls, never saying a word. It's part sports film, part Southern Gothic, part meditation on masculinity and obsession. Roger Corman produced it. New World Pictures released it to drive-ins and regional theaters, where it played for a week and vanished. Critics ignored it. Mainstream audiences had no framework for a movie about an illegal blood sport starring a mute protagonist. It only survived because Monte Hellman directed it with the same existential patience he brought to Two-Lane Blacktop. Why it slaps. Hellman shoots this like Bresson directing a documentary. Long takes, minimal score. The camera just observes Oates' face doing the acting. The cockfighting scenes are unflinching. Hellman films the birds fighting and dying because sanitizing it would betray the world. It's uncomfortable and honest. The supporting cast is full of real cockfighters playing themselves. The whole thing feels like an anthropological study of a subculture Hollywood pretended didn't exist. The hook scene? Oates sits in a cheap motel room the night before the championship, feeding his rooster, checking its claws, whispering to it, even though he's supposed to be silent. It's the only time he breaks his vow, and it's to a bird. The intimacy is disturbing and moving. Who will love it? Two-Lane Blacktop fans. People who think the best character studies happen in the margins of American life. Anyone fascinated by subcultures, cinema usually ignores. Halfway through, let's talk pattern. Notice something? Almost every film on this list was directed by an established auteur making something too personal, too strange, or too early for its moment. Studios expected another Exorcist or another Godfather and got experiments. Audiences expected entertainment and got art. These films were punished for being ahead of the curve. They weren't bad. They were mistimed. Keep that in mind for what comes next. The Ruling Class, 1972, Peter O'Toole inherits a British aristocratic title and believes he is Jesus Christ. Then he's cured and starts believing he's Jack the Ripper instead. It's a satirical musical horror comedy about class, madness, and the British aristocracy's casual tolerance for psychopathy as long as you have the right accent. Avco Embassy released it in limited theaters. It ran nearly 2.5 hours. It had musical numbers, courtroom scenes, hallucination sequences, and tonal whiplash every 10 minutes. Critics were baffled. Some called it brilliant. Others called it a mess. O'Toole got an Oscar nomination. The film made almost nothing and disappeared for decades until Criterion dug it out. Why it slaps. O'Toole gives one of the most unhinged performances in film history. He's charming, terrifying, pathetic, and magnetic, sometimes in the same scene. The satire cuts deep. Britain's ruling class literally prefers a murderous aristocrat to a benevolent one because murder maintains hierarchy. The tonal shifts are intentional chaos. It's a film that refuses to let you settle into one mode. Just when you're laughing, it becomes horrifying. Just when it's horrifying, someone sings. The hook scene? O'Toole addresses the House of Lords post-cure and delivers a speech justifying class violence while the camera slowly pushes in on his face. You watch sanity drain out of his eyes in real time. It's theater-level intensity captured on film. Who will love it? Fans of A Clockwork Orange, and anything by Jodorowsky. People who want their satire to have fangs and musicals to have menace. And then there's the film too quiet for its own good. The Hired Hand, 1971, Peter Fonda, directs and stars in a lyrical western about a drifter who abandons his family, spends years wandering, then tries to come home and rebuild what he destroyed. It's slow, meditative, gorgeously shot, and emotionally restrained in a way that made it box office poison in 1971. Universal expected, Easy Rider Part 2. Fonda delivered a tone poem about regret and labor and the impossibility of undoing harm. It opened to empty theaters and vanished within weeks. Fonda recut it years later, trying to salvage it, but the damage was done. It only found an audience through VHS and revival screenings. Decades later. Why it slaps. Vilmos Zsigmond's cinematography makes the American West look like a fading dream. Every frame is soft light, long shadows, dust in the air. The pacing is deliberate to the point of hypnotic. Fonda barely speaks. The film trusts silence and landscape to carry emotion. There's a subplot about friendship and loyalty that resolves in brutal violence, but the violence feels inevitable and sad, not cathartic. The hook scene? Fonda's character returns home, and his wife, played by Verna Bloom, makes him work as a hired hand before she'll consider taking him back. The montage of him rebuilding fences, mucking stables, earning back trust through labor is more emotionally devastating than any confrontation scene could be. Who will love it? Days of Heaven fans. Anyone who prefers their westerns about atmosphere and regret instead of action. People who think McCabe and Mrs. Miller needed to be even quieter. But we're not done with misunderstood auteurs yet. Images, 1972. Robert Altman again. This time he makes a psychological horror film about a children's book author slowly losing her mind in an isolated Irish countryside house. Susanna York plays a woman who starts seeing and hearing versions of her dead lovers, her husband, herself. Reality fractures. Past and present bleed together. Its repulsion meets Don't Look Now with Altman's signature overlapping dialogue. Columbia released it to art house theaters where it played for a few weeks and died. Critics appreciated the craft, but audiences stayed away. Psychological horror in 1972 meant explicit gore or supernatural scares. Altman gave them ambiguity and interiority. Wrong year, wrong expectations. Why it slaps. John Williams, Yes, that John Williams composed a score of dissonant woodwinds and ambient textures that sounds nothing like Star Wars and everything like creeping madness. Zsigmond shoots the Irish landscape like it's predatory. Trees loom, water reflects, fog obscures. York's performance is all fracturing control. You watch her try to maintain composure while her perception of reality disintegrates. The editing rhythm mirrors her mental state. The cuts become more erratic as she unravels. The hook scene? York has a conversation with a phantom version of her ex-lover while her husband is in the same room. The camera cuts between three perspectives: her ex, her husband, her reaction to both. You can't tell what's real until the husband speaks and reveals he sees nothing. It's Altman using his multi-track audio expertise to create subjective horror. Who will love it? Possession and The Shining fans. People who prefer psychological horror rooted in perception over paranormal explanations. Anyone who thinks horror works better when it's unexplained. Final film, and it's the one that answers the mystery from the opening. The Long Goodbye, 1973. Robert Altman takes Raymond Chandler's iconic detective Philip Marlowe and drops him into 1970s Los Angeles, where his code of honor and old-school loyalty make him a relic. Elliot Gould plays Marlowe as a mumbling, chain-smoking, constantly confused observer of a world that's moved past him. It's an anti-noir disguised as a noir. United Artists hated it. They pulled it from release after 1 week. Test audiences despised the ending. Critics compared it to Chinatown and called it a lesser imitation. Altman was accused of destroying a beloved character. The film only survived because Pauline Kael championed it, and revival theaters kept screening it until the reputation shifted. Here's the secret. Altman wasn't making a detective story. He was making a film about the death of a certain kind of masculinity. Marlowe's loyalty gets weaponized against him. His honor becomes his weakness. Every person he trusts betrays him. The final scene, where Marlowe makes a choice that inverts everything Chandler stood for, is Altman rejecting the entire genre's moral framework. The hook scene? The opening. Marlowe's cat wakes him up demanding a specific brand of cat food. Marlowe stumbles to the store at 3 a.m., tries to trick the cat with a different brand, fails. It's 10 minutes of screen time about a man who can't even con his cat. That's the film's thesis. This detective can't navigate the modern world because he still believes in rules nobody else follows. Who will love it? Inherent Vice fans. People who appreciate genre deconstruction as much as pure genre. Anyone who thinks the best noir is the one that admits the whole mythology was a lie. So what did we learn? The 70s rewarded spectacle, clarity, and films that matched their marketing. These 10 movies are patient, ambiguous, personal, and completely sincere in their weirdness. They trusted audiences to meet them halfway. Audiences, especially in a decade drunk on Jaws and Star Wars, wanted the film to do all the work. But here's the gift. These films still exist. You can watch them tonight. You can see what 1973 rejected and what 2025 should celebrate. You can build a watch list that makes you feel like you've cracked a code.